was challenging for us to raise capital at the time. We also had our first investor committed and then backed out at the last second.
Welcome to the Dispensary Marketing Podcast, where we interview the top dispensary owners and experts in this space so that you can stay up to date with the latest trends and strategies that you'd otherwise miss out on. I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Dispensary Marketing Podcast, Ryan. Thank you for hopping on the show.
Absolutely, Brad. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. So you're located in Flagstaff, Arizona. You have one location. And tell me a little bit about how that location came to be.
Absolutely. It's fun kind of revisiting basically 12 years ago when this whole venture started. But Arizona passed Prop 203 in the 2010 election. And it passed by a couple thousand votes. So Arizona at that time was more of a kind of Republican-leaning state. But we also, Arizonans do not like to be kind of told what to do. So it had enough support and passed, but barely. And that's what kind of started the venture. That being said, we had a county attorney that was extremely right-wing against marijuana. And there was definitely concerns on how he's going to handle this. And our sheriff, Joe Arpaio, which is one of the few sheriffs that makes like national headlines back in the day. He was, kind of along the same line. So it was very interesting to see how things were going to unfold. But because of those concerns, we actually went and targeted Flagstaff, which is about 2 hours north of Phoenix. It's a college town. It's just more of a marijuana-friendly environment is what we kind of expected. And it, the rest is kind of history. That's what kept us targeting Flagstaff and my one a couple hours north.
Right. So we had a little pre-call before, and we were talking about the different name iterations that you went through. So I didn't say it at the start of the call, but you're the CEO and co-founder of Noble Herb out in Flagstaff, Arizona. But it wasn't always called that.
Yes.
How did you get to Noble Herb? What's that story?
So we when we were putting business plans together and deciding on a name and actually it was a legit lottery process to actually apply for a license. So you had no idea what all the other businesses were going to be called.
Right.
And we thought we were really creative and came up with a really cool name called Greenhouse and opened as that business. It turned out there was two other greenhouses that we were not affiliated with at all. So that was immediately confusing for vendors, for customers, and as well. Flagstaff's a small town. There was only three dispensaries in the town. Mm-hmm. One was called Green Farms. So you had 3 dispensaries, 1 greenhouse, 1 Green Farms, and then, as we all know now, the color green is just so played out, and there's so many names and so many brands that we just kind of got fed up with it, and we're ready for a rebrand and changed over to Noble Herb. So we alleviated a lot of confusion on customers and vendors, and it's been a great move. We love our new logo and marketing, and it's created a lot of cool gear and swag and stuff. So it's been a very positive move for us.
Right. So when you first started, and you use the whole, as you say, overplayed green, if you will, when you first started, I know when it comes to, let's say, the initial foundations of design, a lot of people are like, we want to work with like a branding agency or something like that to get started. And I commented how I really liked your website, and I think it looks good with the whole color scheme and the design and things like that. Did you start off with kind of your own little sketch pad on what you think you want the design might be? Or did you just start and be like, hey, I want somebody professional to kind of take this over? And, that's kind of, where you began that.
Yeah. So we bootstrapped pretty much everything and wore a ridiculous amount of hats. And in fact, my partner, Doug, and I, so there's 3 of us, my brother, Brandon, and then our partner, Doug Daly. We kept our day jobs for the first, 3 years or so. Mm-hmm. Being in Flagstaff, it's a super small town. It was medical marijuana only. You had to have a card to walk in their door. So there was a lot of hoops our customers and patients had to jump through before they could even come shop with us. So we were broke. We were very underfunded to start. We used 99 Designs to come up with the greenhouse logo. It costs like $100, $200, and we did that. So vastly different approach to get open than 7 years later when we had reached a certain level of success and could bring on a legit marketing firm and go through all the different name iterations and logos. It was a vastly different process, 7 years into the future from where we started. Very different process.
Right, right. And then speaking about process, what was your process getting into the cannabis space? Were you always, kind of part of it? Were you against it initially, and then you kind of got into the industry? What was kind of like your situation? Because you mentioned your brother as well, and we had somebody on, another guest on the other day, and they were talking about how they opened up, and now it's like a family-run operation. But when they first started it, their mother, their father was like completely against it. They're like, "What are you doing?" Da 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 da. But now, the concept has been proven in terms of business and legitimacy and stuff like that. So, what was your kind of process getting into the cannabis space?
Yeah, it was fascinating. I was always for it. I was just kind of a free market guy and
Okay.
kind of have a libertarian mindset of just let me do what I want to do. You do what you want to do. So I never was against marijuana in any way. But I never thought I'd end up doing this as a career. It
Mm,
wasn't really a career option if you rewind, 12 years ago. So when it became an option, it seems just like an incredible opportunity to go after. I was in grad school. I was working on an MBA. I worked for in medical device sales. So I worked for Stryker Spine, and I spent my days in the operating room. So I was seeing that side of the medical world. I was seeing a lot of people in pain. I mean, if you're actually having your spine operated on, you're in some major pain. So
yeah.
I would interact with patients and see that side of things, and knew that how big of a deal pain was. And I think we were just kind of learning about marijuana as actually a medicinal use and how it can alleviate pain. And it was more rumors, very few studies, more anecdotal type evidence at that point. Being
Sure.
federally legal, it was always very hard to study, and there was a lot of hoops that any doctor that wanted to study marijuana had to jump through. So that you just didn't see a lot of good literature. What that enabled us to do is just see this as a really cool opportunity. So we went for it. Haven't looked back since, but it's been a heck of a rocky road. My parents at the time, I think, were very hesitant about it. They
Mhm.
shared the same concerns, quite frankly, that I did of, is somebody going to kick in your door because you're, own a dispensary now? And it was a legitimate thought. Like it wasn't, it's so 12 years ago, it doesn't sound like that long of a time,
Yeah.
but the stigma of marijuana has changed so drastically in that time. It feels like a century ago.
Yeah.
Now there's nobody in the country's concerned on owning and operating a legal dispensary. Funding, right? Like trying to raise funds and bring on investors at that time was brutal for all the exact concerns I just laid out. Now people line up to invest in cannabis. So the industry, the stigma, my parents' mindset, everything's changed over those 12 years. And, I think people look at it very much as a positive thing now. And you see people, cutting back on alcohol, prescription drugs, and switching over to marijuana, and just embracing a natural plant. It's been I think, been a huge improvement in our country. And I hope you see a lot more of that.
Right, right. One thing that you brought up that was interesting that we also spoke about before is the free market mindset, letting the market decide on which businesses are going to be a success or not, right? And we kind of had like a little back and forth. We didn't argue or anything like that, but just like kind of like let's play devil's advocate and see how far we can take the free market thing, right? And to give the audience context, you and I share the same mindset on the whole free market aspect. Like if you're good enough to achieve the thing, then you deserve the thing, right? And a lot of times when we build these businesses, we want to think that like if we have the best product, the best customer service, and all these things, we are good enough to achieve the thing. But in a market like the cannabis space where money does talk, right? I think it would be ignorant for us to say it doesn't, where people's pockets are so deep where no amount of good customer service and good quality product can kind of overrun that. And then you have the conversation of, well, maybe good enough isn't regarding the product and the good customer service. It's good enough to know the people that have the money that then can invest in the business, that then you can succeed, right? And I think a lot of conversations I have with people like yourself, especially like the local family owned mom and pop boutique shops, craft cannabis, whatever it is, where competition across the board, even here in Canada, in the States, everywhere, it's just an absolute gauntlet, right? And then it comes to that whole free market thing about, do we like competition, or do we want to kind of thumbs up, or do we want to make some restrictions on kind of competition itself? But then does that go against kind of the free market thought process that we have? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, like, the competition in the cannabis space, and like kind of like, do you think it's too much? Do you think it's just a government way to get tax money because they only care about stores open, not about the individual stores themselves? What are your thoughts about that?
It is certainly a fascinating conversation. I think you're seeing it unfold nationwide. So you have different states, and even compare Canada to US, like just focusing and handling things exceptionally different. You look at a state like New Mexico, and you certainly see it in Oregon and Washington. There's basically it is more of a free market approach, and it's just open licensing. It's exceptionally easy and inexpensive to get a license. I think there's a major misconception though that it creates a lot of problems. It's at least relevant and needs to be part of the conversation. At some point, I think if somebody thought they were going to be a dispensary owner and start a dispensary, it was like a lottery ticket. We kind of joked that we won the lottery because it actually was a lottery on a license standpoint in Arizona. So like they did use a licensing lottery process to decide who's going to end up with licenses. So Arizona is very different than New Mexico and Washington, Oregon, et cetera. So it's a limited license state. So Arizona is a voter pass initiative, so I think it's very different. So when a state comes in and sets up rules and regulations and makes it just like anybody can apply, anybody can jump in and give their hand and try and raise capital and open a store and see how they do. I have nothing against that approach at all. I think it's great. Let the best rise to the top. You're going to see a lot of people lose a lot of money, which is terrible, but that's true in every business, right? You can open a restaurant. We all know how brutal restaurants are. Nobody's preventing you from opening a restaurant. You pass, you apply, you get your license, you comply with local jurisdiction codes, etc. You're serving burgers or whatever restaurant you want to open. That's great. Now they're not all going to make it. So you can take that same mindset to cannabis. You're a business owner now in New Mexico, and you're doing great. But there's a couple thousand dispensaries, and realistically, a state like New Mexico, population wise. Off the top of my head, I think it's less than 2 million. I think it's closer, to 1.5. They probably need, geographically, it's a good sized state, but they probably need like 50 dispensaries. And there's, I think, upwards of close to 2,000. It's certainly in the many, many hundreds and multiples of a state like Arizona, which I think is close to 8 million in population. Right. So I don't know that it's great for the state to necessarily say, hey, this is how many licenses we want. But if you take a voter pass initiative, for example, in like the state of Arizona, the voters said what they wanted. So like they voted on something, and I think that is different. And that's one of the great things about the U.S. is you handle things differently. So some states have the state government actually create the program, where in Arizona we're allowed to pass a voter pass initiative, and we can actually decide that ourselves, vote on it, and it goes into law. And it's really hard to change that. It's really hard to change that. So I like the model in Arizona. I'm biased, right? I'm one of 169 license holders in the state. I can assure you that there absolutely is competition. I think prices are very competitive, even with other states. So from that standpoint, I think it's working. And it also kind of avoids, what you see in Colorado, where there's 4 dispensaries on a block. So I don't know that that's great for people either. Yeah, certainly not great for the businesses. You get a lot of complaints just from your local citizens about it. So that fine line is interesting, but it is fun. It's a great conversation, and it's fun to see how the different states handle it.
Yeah. I mean, it is super interesting because on a state by state basis, even on a country by country basis, right? And then on an owner operator basis, it's just how people perceive how they should go about business is different, right? And I think on the restaurant example, while yes, that does make a lot of sense, there is also an argument to say that, like, I think as of right now, anyways, with specifically cannabis, I still think we're still so much in its infancy that there is no like Nike, Gucci, Louis Vuitton. There's no hierarchy of cannabis products, right? There's different price strains that people say are premium, right? And you can talk about the pesticides and the lab results and stuff like that. But I don't think there is a distinct, this is the best strain, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And the competition kind of argument, just to play devil's advocate, is more so you can open up as many restaurants as possible. But if you open up a burger restaurant and I open up an Italian restaurant, right, we're effectively different. But if we're two dispensaries within a 2 to 3 mile radius, more likely than not, the convenience of the location is going to play a larger part into me kind of going across, spending an extra 10 minutes to go drive over there. So again, that's the argument that I hear, is that like there's more of a differentiating factor when it comes to food, at least right now, right? Because everyone's been eating food. Everyone has their palate preferences. They want to eat healthy. They want to eat fast. They want to eat sit down. When it comes to the cannabis space, it's very much pick up some product, feel a specific way, and then go. And then you can talk about we're expanding to beverages and edibles and pre-rolls and all these kind of new innovative things. I actually had a chat with somebody earlier, and we were talking about, are there any products that kind of came on your shelf that you thought was ahead of its time? And he was saying that, 10 years ago, there was a granola bar that they released. And, he was saying that was seemingly ahead of its time, because 10 years ago was very much like, how do I just kind of, roll flour and grind it up, and that's pretty much it, right? So I know, and we spoke about, we have the general question list, but I find these conversations fascinating. So as someone who has also been in the game for such a long period of time, have you seen any products kind of on your shelf, then off your shelf, and you're like, you know what, this is probably a really good product, but it just didn't really sell because it just wasn't the right timing?
So the novelty products are always fun and fascinating and interesting. We've seen Otter Pops, their version of Otter Pops that come and go. We margaritas mix, iced teas, peanut butter, hot sauce. So all of those we've carried at different times. They generally, it's like something somebody buys once and they generally don't buy them again. So they're fun, but it's hard to sustain a business off that if you're not a lot of repeat clients, if you're the actual manufacturer of those products. So on the retail standpoint, especially you have tourist traffic and a lot of new people coming in, those products can do well. But like a thing like peanut butter, for example, like it's fun, but I mean, how many jars of peanut butter do you buy a year? And then you have your regular peanut butter, and you have your medicated peanut butter. It's even less. So it's just a product that you can only charge so much for, and even if the person loves it, they're buying it once a year. So versus we have an edible line, so pure edibles, for example, gummies. It's the largest category, right? 70% of edible sales are gummies because they're super easy, convenient, fast. You can just pop a gummy and you're off to your day. We just launched Kicks, which is our version of Starburst. So it's a product very similar to Starburst, but our branding is Kicks. We think that'll be a really unique product and do really well. Those actually just launched yesterday, so we're really excited to see how those do in the state. The initial feedback and testing and everything was just spectacular. So we do like unique things. And just the feedback we've got immediately from all dispensary, the buyers and ownership, they're just ecstatic to see something that's just not a gummy. I think we all have gummy fatigue, and there's 75 gummy brands or so in the state. So it's like every day you get somebody trying to get their gummy in your door, and you can only carry so many brands. You only have so much shelf space and storage, etc. So the unique brands do well, but I think there's probably a sweet spot of it's a unique product that people will still come and buy again. It's not novelty where they're going to buy it once and never buy it again.
Right. So what's your overall R&D process in saying, hey, I'm going to make this product based on a problem that I'm solving, right? Because that's the foundation of business. Find a problem, create a solution, right? Some businesses create the problem and the solution at the same time. But, for the most part, find a problem, create the solution, then sell it for money. And kind of as you said it, like you have your gummies, you have your beverages, you have your topicals and stuff like that. Kind of like how did you get to this Starburst like product that you said you wanted to bring to reality?
Yeah, we're not reinventing the wheel here. So we look at analytics and data to try to understand where the market is. I mean, that ultimately we started pure edibles I mentioned that we struggled as a startup and getting going, and when we were medical only, things were challenging. We knew we could do better as a dispensary. So the reason Pure Edibles launched was so Doug could leave his job as an attorney, I could leave my job as medical device sales, and we could basically be full time. The dispensary could not even remotely afford basically 2 more full time employees. Especially guys with families and trying to survive here. So we took massive pay cuts, but the way we decided to kind of pay up for us was we launched an edible company. So Pure Edibles, along with the help of my brother and partner who was a chef and owned a restaurant going previous to this life, it started basically with chews. It was like some caramels and like a Tootsie Roll type product that we just called chocolate. We actually originally called it Tootsie. It was nicknamed by our clients Tootsie because it's really cool. We used a machine that's 100 years old. It was made for taffy, and we would cook the product, and this machine would roll it. It was like an ocean nightmare. It was moving blades, and it looks like you'd see it in a movie. It was a little scary to run, but we were very safe with it. And this thing was like cast iron. It probably weighed like 1,000 pounds. And it's literally just picture like blades chopping, Edward Scissorhands style. But this thing would cut these, individual, caramels, and they would be about 2 inches long and round. And they did the taffy it made previously. It just the same shape. It kind of looked like a Tootsie Roll. So they got nicknamed Tootsie. We used that name, and then we got some mean letters from the Tootsie company and had to change our name. So we were still Pure Edibles, but the Tootsie just became simply chocolate. But it's still a fun day to get a letter from Tootsie when you made it big enough to be on their radar. So that was our first product. And then when we wanted to expand, we were just looking at market share, and 70% of gummies back in the day and still now are edibles. Some 70% of edible sales are gummies. I'm sorry. So to be a big player in the edible side, you had to have that product to compete, and it's been great. Like it's definitely our number one product now. And then we were looking for to bring on a third product. We were kind of looking at the analytics and specifically ruled out the novelty products I referenced before. So we want that repeat business. We want people to come in and once a week they're buying Pure Edibles, depending on what the different product is. So we kind of took a step back and just looked at what's popular, and you start thinking of candies like Kit Kat bars and Skittles and Starburst and just all the candy you grew up with, and what can you make, what can you replicate, what can you find machinery to mimic, and then you go down that road. So the R&D process, it's way longer than you think, because you have to find machinery to be able to compete at scale. Even just for a single state like Arizona, we're in over 100 doors. So you're pumping out, millions of units, and to be able to do that, you need to be able to make things through machinery. Like handmade worked back in the day, it doesn't work anymore for us as a company. So now you have to find machinery too. So it's like, how can you find machinery that makes a candy that people are going to love? And that's how you just start kind of ruling things out. So depending on the complexity of the candy, you can get rid of a lot of different options. Like, a version of Skittles was something we were excited about, but the machinery was, and we were going to have to completely redo our building. And machinery is going to be $1 million+ plus construction and all that. So, we started kind of scratching out different products and moved on, and ultimately decided on Kicks. But that was, 2.5 years ago. We just launched yesterday. So, we have a food scientist in Germany that helped us with the recipe. So she was amazing. But we're dealing with machinery from London, a food scientist in Germany. Obviously, a lot of personal R&D with our team. It's a long process. Then it's colors and flavors and names and packaging. So you're bringing on a marketing company for the packaging. Packaging generally comes from China, depending on what type of product you're doing. So there's a lot that goes into it. So she's saying it out loud, you start rehashing some memories of why that takes 2.5 years. It's a long time.
That's incredibly impressive. Did you think you would get to this stage when you first started? Was this ever like, okay, I'm now going to be dealing in the millions of dollars of R&D and the years of time spent to be doing things? Because you first start something, you start a new venture and you're like, I want this thing to work within the next 2 months, right? Or I only have enough runway for this to work for the first quarter, and then I need to bring money in because then, the company's going to go under. And now you're dealing with, people internationally. I think Germany just legalized it as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
So
this week.
that's huge over there, right? So that's really awesome. So yeah, did you ever think that this would be the scale at which you'd be doing things?
No, I don't think we envisioned the success on the retail side. I mean, and the edible side, it came years later. So that certainly
Yeah,
wasn't a thought. It was more of trying to figure out a solution to how can we quit our day jobs. And then, that's
sure.
like I said, that's where Pure came from. So that was certainly never part of the original plan. In fact, to rewind even further, like when the law first passed in Arizona, you couldn't even sell edibles. You couldn't make them. You couldn't sell them. So it even took time for the state to create new rules just for edibles to even be a thing, be a market.
Right.
So it's still evolving here. Like the rules are still changing. It's still
Yeah.
evolving. It's a very customer safety first is the approach from Arizona's Department of Health.
Yeah.
So like that's the focus. So like it has not changed. Every year we've had new rules, new regulations. You have a compliance team to keep us compliant. We have daily inspections, all that. So it's or not daily, but random inspections pretty routinely. So it's staying up on all that has been challenging also.
Right. Right. I mean, every problem you solve in business creates more problems, and doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad things, but it's like you solve for one thing, then there's another thing. You do the R&D, you find something that looks good, tastes good, then you're like, okay, now I need to go test it with other people, and then you sell it, and then you're like, oh, I need to make more. And it's like, oh, I need to make a lot more. So you got to go through that hamster wheel of, doors,
Right.
going through problems and shipping away, and then bigger problems. Now you're in the big boy league, but that's what you signed up for sure. So you mentioned the retail side was also a massive success as well. What's your general marketing mix to kind of get people in through the door?
So we have a amazing location. So we're right on Route 66, which is just literally a road that gets traveled from the entire country. So people know that road, which is fun. We're close to downtown Flagstaff, so we have great visibility. So we do get a lot of just walk-in traffic from Flagstaff tourism.
Right.
Flagstaff's on its way to the Grand Canyon, so it's pretty normal for people on their way to the Grand Canyon to stay a night or two in Flagstaff. It's an incredible city. It's not like what most people are envisioning Arizona to be like. Obviously, we are a desert, but you go 2 hours north from Phoenix, and you're at 7,000 feet. It's pine trees. It's snowing. This today it's like snowing in Flagstaff today. So it's a very different environment.
Mhm.
College town, just real cool place. And we market towards all of that. So we embrace tourism, embrace the ski traveling, people coming up from the valley to ski. We use radio ads, billboards, social media. Social media is very challenging. You can play by the
Yeah.
rules and still have your account shut down, and
Yeah.
probably on our 10th Instagram account. And
I imagine.
it's actually a truly ongoing frustration. So it's like you put a lot of time, energy, and money, and you engage with your customers and everything that social media is supposed to be, and then somebody can report you for nothing and they'll just suspend your account.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like there's no question. At first, we made some mistakes, like
Of course.
and they were learning too. So they would change rules, and we would try to play by the rules and understand what you're allowed to post and not post. But those rules also evolve as you would
Mhm.
expect. But they're not great at letting you know. So it's like this underground language of like, what are you allowed to post on
Yeah.
Instagram? Twitter's actually opened up far more now. Like you're actually seeing legitimate advertising from the marijuana industry, where
Yeah.
Instagram, you can't advertise on Instagram, but you can have a site
Mhm.
until it gets shut down. So it's been challenging. The
Yeah.
marketing and media is challenging. It's a lot of word of mouth. Google's been huge, just Google reviews. People fortunately are giving us great reviews, and that helps, right? It's just a word of mouth. And then being in Flagstaff, there's three of us, so I think everybody, probably not everybody, but a decent amount of people try all three. So we definitely dominate the just local Flagstaff market, and the
Sure.
people up there we take great care of. We're able to have it's a really large retail store. We did a very beautiful build out. We put a lot of time and money into it to make it the best dispensary in the state. We're very proud of what we built. Like visually, it's stunning, but it also has the size to carry a great breadth of products. Store ample products, so we don't run out of stuff, and we have enough POS stations to get people in a reasonable amount of time.
Nice.
You know, we have people on our floor that are there just to answer questions. You know, like they're
Oh wow, nice.
Our POS people we call them bud tenders, but we have educational people on the floor. Every single day we have somebody that hasn't, walks in that's either never smoked weed or hasn't done it in decades. And, it's a little intimidating, like it's using a metric system and they don't know what milligrams are, and, they don't know how much to take or what a concentrate is versus an edible versus a joint. So it's just, starting at, the baseline and educating them and building them up. 100%. And we create a lot of loyalty that way too.
I mean, well, back in the day, you used to have a guy. And that was it, right? I have a guy, right?
You used to have a guy, and whatever he had is what you got, right?
Yeah.
You were lucky you had 2 strains to choose from, right?
Exactly.
Now you walk in most dispensaries, like we have pretty close to 30 strains on our shelf on any day. And I actually remember vividly, like when we first opened, the novelty of a dispensary, and it was so exciting to people. And there weren't a lot of grows. It was hard to buy flower by the pound, and the initial struggle. We had very small selection, and we'd have like 6 strains on the shelf, and people would walk in and they're just blown away. Like, oh my god, there's 6 strains, and they can look at them and smell them and see different THC percentages, and they thought it was so cool. And you fast forward like 2 months, and they'd be like, oh, you only have 6 strains. You're like. Yeah. It was 30 days ago, 2 months ago. You were so ecstatic to have 6 strains, and now that's not enough. So that's evolved drastically too, as all the growers in the state have got so much better, and the product that's grown in Arizona has reached peaks and as good as anything out there. But yeah, we have a huge selection, and we're very proud of that, and definitely just create a good environment and good variety, and people seem happy.
Right. But before we continue, if you're enjoying this episode and are looking for some marketing help for your own dispensary, you can check us out at cannabudmarketing.com or visit us in the links in the description below. Now, on to the rest of the episode. So on the, you mentioned a lot on the tourism side, how you have a decent amount of people coming in, just because you're on the main highway, big, ideal location, as they always say. So you're always also emphasizing the importance of repeat and return customers, right? So does your strategy change to get repeat customers who are more so tourists who may come in once a year versus locals coming in multiple times a month? Like, does that strategy change at all?
I wouldn't say the strategy changes. We treat everybody as good as we possibly can, whether they're, in from overseas, like literally, which happens quite a bit. Like the Grand Canyon brings in people from all over the world. So we definitely have a lot of adults that come in and, don't have legal marijuana in their country. It's a pretty cool experience for them to check out what we have. But, we rely on our locals, right? Like our local population and the people that are coming in, once or twice a week. Like those are the people that are truly paying your bills, and we do everything we can to take great care of them. We have a lot of loyalty reward points, and so we have a really good rewards program. So you can build up rewards and get discounts off of anything. So it's your choice. It's not like limited, but basically it's just you spend money, you end up getting reward points and discounts off your stuff. We do a ton of specials. We have something on special every single day, and work with our vendor partners to just really try to create great discounts and buy one get one frees, and 40-50% off deals. So those for the people that are routinely shopping with us, they're able to take advantage of really good pricing, really good deals on a daily basis.
Yeah. I have 2 possible ninja hacks for you on the marketing side, because you were talking about the issues of social media. And how difficult it is to post online. So I don't know if you've ever heard of these 2 things, but when you were talking about it before, I figured I'd let you know. So, and I guess anyone else is listening, but so I was doing some research a little while ago, and there's this company, you probably might have heard from them. They're called Santa Cruz Medicinals, but they focus like on CBD. And there's a whole other issue kind of shipping cannabis related products, right? Because it's CBD, sure, like you can skirt around some. Anyways, so what he does, he goes to like local grocery stores, and he goes and he looks at the ingredients. Like he goes, looks at cereal boxes and is like, well, this cereal box has palm oil, 500 grams of sugar, whatever it is, right? And a lot of people resonate with this nutrition analysis, right? And on the banner of the website, it just says visit Santa Cruz Medicinals. And he has hundreds of thousands of followers. And this was a little while ago, so I don't know if he's changed up his marketing, but his page is nothing to do with CBD, like nothing even remotely close to CBD. It's all about like nutrition and like analyzing different food products and stuff like that. And people go and comment. And then that then goes ahead and drives kind of the top of funnel content to the website itself. So that was a very interesting one, to kind of like have a page that has nothing to do with your business, but maybe everything to do with like, you know, local Flagstaff tourism things to do. So when Facebook groups were more popular, in the business Facebook groups, you would have like local business owners of Toronto, local business owners of Flagstaff, for example, right? But the person that is the moderator of that group is like an accountant, or you know, they own a local business themselves, but the group has like 13,000 people because it's just a networking thing. So it was this hyper ninja way, because then they had control over like pinning posts and stuff like that. So that was the ninja hack number one, that you might be able to explore. That might be super interesting if you want to do the social media. Because realistically, if you go and you grow your social media the regular way, you're spending all this time, all this effort, all this money, and then the account gets shut down. You got to do it again, right? Might as well grow slow and do that sort of thing. And then the second ninja hack was that there was a dispensary out here in Toronto, and they ran ads for the business beside them. So it was a nail salon shop, and actually it was multiple. It was a nail salon shop, and I think it was a bookstore, because they had a few stores around here in Toronto. And what they did is they ran ads to the nail salon, and then the nail salon was like, if you're looking to get any green, and then they had like green nails and stuff like that, please come on by. You'll have a high that you'll never regret, right? And it was only the nail salon. And then at the end of the video, they said, come visit us right next to, and the business was Stoked Cannabis or whatever, right? So clearly, you know, the people listening and seeing obviously knew what the ad was about, right?
Yeah.
But they kind of skirted around those things. Now, I don't know if our regulating body is going to do anything about it, because this kind of went semi-viral locally, right? So, you know, it's one of those like, you know, is it in the spirit of the law versus in the written law? And then you can kind of go around doing that stuff. So I don't know if you want to ruffle any feathers and you kind of want to have any of those ninja hacks, but I figured I would share those because those seemed, you know, really interesting if you'd really want to test those out.
I love it. I appreciate the creativity. Well done.
Yeah, no worries. So another thing was like curating products. So obviously you create your own products and things like that. What do you look for when you're looking for other products? Is it a lot of like customer feedback? Like you did mention that, you know, the R&D side takes a lot when you're creating the own products, but when it comes about curating products from other vendors, cycling products in and out, talking with the vendors to make sure you get good deals and stuff like that, what does that general process look like for you?
Yeah, that's something we spend a lot of time on. In fact, when I leave here, my meetings will be about exactly that. So sure. Just to give an example, we carry probably about 12 different cartridge companies. You know, like a Stizzy and a Timeless. Like our own brand is Everest. And you know, the list goes on. So we try to carry, you know, any major brand that, you know, could be driving traffic to the store. But the brands that do a good job of advertising and attracting customers to come in, I mean, that's certainly who we want to carry. But you can't carry them all. So like, there's no question there's a cycle. You only have so much shelf space. Even though we have one of the larger stores in the state, we still are limited on shelf space. And then it's also the storage of that product. You have to have a huge room to be able to stock all your products that you're carrying, so you don't run out of stuff. We've worked real hard to make sure we can stock enough products so you don't walk in expecting and hoping to get a certain thing that you saw advertised or you're excited about, and then you're sold out. And it's just an awful customer experience. We pride ourselves on that not happening. You know, so we're constantly evaluating sales. You know, if the product is underperforming and only sells when it's on sale, it's not a great product. It's not something we're excited to carry, and we'll be looking to replace it. We certainly appreciate Arizona brands too. So we're loyal to Arizona brands. Like if you started here and have been through the trenches with us over the past decade, like we try to stay loyal to those brands. But as Arizona's grown as a market, we've attracted all the large brands in the state. From other states are now here. So if it's a big product, we're going to carry it.
Yeah. Free market, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we for perspective, like I mentioned, we have Everest carts, right? So it's a top selling cart in our store, but we have 12 other brands competing against it, and the same with our gummy line. We carry probably 7 or 8 different gummies, even though Pure Gummies it's our top selling gummy, which is great. But we definitely carry other top selling gummies too. So we don't want to exclude other brands just because it's competition to us. If it's a great brand, has great reputation, like they're going to be in our store.
Right. What made you decide that you wanted to hire enough staff to both answer questions and be bud tenders at the same time, instead of only having your bud tenders in the back to kind of facilitate those deals?
So that's our entire approach. We want to make sure that people can come in, have much more of a normal retail experience. So you can come in, you place the order online, walk up. We have 2 POS stations just for online pickups. So you place your order, show up. There's never a line. We move through people exceptionally quick. You can get your order, you're gone. We have that. The pickup is very close to the front door, so you're in and out very quickly. We have a huge parking lot, which avoids the traffic mess that a lot of shops have. But then for the people that want to come in and browse and have that more traditional retail experience, look at all the display cases, check out the advertising, the TVs, all that stuff, and actually kind of browse the store. We have people out there on the floor to answer questions. So the reason we did that, one is once the rec passed, which was a couple years ago now, you started getting a lot more people that are either trying marijuana for the first time or haven't done it in decades, like I referenced before. So it enables somebody to just feel real comfortable. We want to create new customers that are going to keep coming back, and we truly believe if they have a great first experience, there's no reason for them to try out other dispensaries. So we spend the extra time and money to make sure that people have a good experience. They're not waiting in line. It's not a 30-minute experience. They can literally be out in less than a minute if they want to, even on a busy Friday. Now, that being said, the way we designed our store is if people want to check stuff out and hear all the specials and look around, check out all the flower on display, they certainly can do that. And we have people there to help. Even if you're a very experienced, marijuana user, we have so many products, like there's no way you're going to know what everything is. And then you just take a very simple product like a gummy. There could be 7 or 8 different SKUs just from that one gummy company. So it's like the indica and sativa, and now you see different cannabinoids being popular. And we've added CBN to our Pure gummies for sleep. We have a berry sleepy line that basically is for sleep. And then we launched Bliss, which actually, when I chatted with you last week, we just won the High Times. So our Bliss gummy, it's got CBG in it, CBD, and THC. So that's kind of all the rage now, but most people don't understand what all that stuff is. So there's a big education point on that. And then, on the flower too, like we're testing for terpene profile on all our flower. So now you have all these, Latin, 15 character words on there, and people need to understand what that stuff does and how it would affect them, and, what this strain can do for your body versus that strain. So having people out there, regardless of your marijuana knowledge level, it's been a huge success and very helpful for our customers.
Right. So obviously the customer education is incredibly important because, it's not that they don't know anything from I don't know anything, I'm dumb standpoint. It's just that there's so many options out there that it's very hard to keep up if you're not kind of paying attention, if you're not a connoisseur, if you will. So do you do a lot of education for your staff and employees consistently?
We do. Very much. So they have ongoing trainings, not only for new people, but to your point, this industry is changing. Like I'm 12 years in, we've been open 10 and a half. But we're still in our infancy. We weren't doing terpene profiles 3 years ago. That's something that didn't exist for the first 70% of us being open. But now, the labs keep getting better. They keep reinvesting and focusing on different things. I had no idea what CBN or CBG was 3 years ago.
Right.
And now we have two products that feature those, so the industry is constantly changing. We make sure that our staff stays up on that education. We encourage our vendor partners to provide education and help us understand what separates their products from everybody else out there. So it's an ongoing process involving, verbal trainings, like gathering around Q&A, as well as like some written literature we actually go over. So yeah, we definitely pride ourselves in having a staff that can, have knowledge base as good as anyone's.
Right. So with all this testing and stuff like that, somebody brought up a good point the other day where a lot of people are coming in still to this point, like you say, it's in its infancy, where they want the highest THC product and the lowest cost available, right? But you wouldn't go into a wine store and say, I just want the most amount of alcohol in my wine, right? I mean, maybe some people, but that's beside the point. Do you think cannabis is going to be closer to that kind of whole wine stuff? Maybe it's closer to like a craft beer, or it's just going to have your regular mainstream beer variations, like your Coors Light and stuff like that. Then you're going to have your craft kind of beer selection. Do you think cannabis is eventually going to get to that point?
It's supposed to, right? It's supposed to follow the same retail trends that you see everywhere else, right? There should be a Louis Vuitton of flower. There should be a Walmart of flower. There's needs for both. There's desires, wants for both. We have like a tiered system. So like we basically have 3 different tiers of flower. You can spend $10 on a gram or 15 on a gram. But we also have $45 half ounces pre-regularly. So it's like we try to cover the gamut and have different price points. And what's crazy is I can get flower at 30% that I can put in $45 half ounces. So we try to just hit all the market. We're not trying to necessarily steer people towards one thing. We're just providing variety to let them choose. There's no question you've seen the dispensaries try to be that super high-end, exclusive boutique style. And I know there's some that have done that successfully, and there's certainly some that have failed. It's a fascinating topic, and I know you've seen brands try it and fail, dispensaries try it and fail. But yeah, there's still demand for top quality product, right? So I can spend 4 times the price of a pound of marijuana, and I can sell that at a premium compared to something that's 25% of the price. And there's a market for both. So our approach is just to have the variety and let the consumer choose. But there's no question from me spending money buying products to put in our store, there's a vast difference, which makes sense too. Like you kind of have, like to your IPA comment, you have the boutique indoor grows where there's somebody touching a plant every single day, and the nutrients go in and organic, and like there's a desire for that. It still needs a test high, and it needs to look beautiful and be frosty and have a good terp profile. But if you check all those boxes, people will pay more money for that. That being said, there's plenty of people, if not close to a majority, that will walk in and with that attitude of, I want over 30% for the cheapest possible deal. And I don't think that's going away, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. But we have to have that price point available too, which we do.
Yeah. And I mean, especially near the college towns, you are going to have the people that I want the cheapest vodka, but because at the end of the night, I want to get drunk. I'm going to get drunk with the cheapest vodka. I'm 20 years old. My body will rebound immediately the next day, and I'm good to go. Right? I can't say the same about myself like that now, but I used to back in the day. So
no question, same way.
Exactly.
I wasn't drinking IPAs when I was 20. I was drinking with whatever the cheapest beer was I could get. It was like Keystone Light, I think. Just garbage.
Yeah.
And then now it's I'm buying a 4-pack of IPAs for like $12. So it's my profiles on beers changed drastically. I expect people, as they get more educated, that will change too. Some of that's just what you can afford. Like that's always going to be relevant. But as you become more educated and you're more, your palate develops, you're going to like different things. You're going to like different terpene profiles, and you're going to realize that the care that goes into that more expensive marijuana is generally going to be better, maybe less hangover, less cottonmouth, whatever, less coughing for sure. So, people will start to see the benefits of that and gravitate towards that.
Sure. Would you do it all over again if you could? And if you would, what would you do differently?
Oh, that's a fun one. There's no question I would do it over again for sure. We were very underfunded to start, which that wasn't our fault or our choice. That was the reality of the industry at the time. You can have a lot of conversations to raise capital, but you have to have people willing to lend you capital for an industry that's federally illegal, and nobody had any idea what was going to happen, right? So I understand why it was challenging for us to raise capital at the time. We also had our first investor committed and then backed out at the last second. Like he had put in some money to the company and then changed his mind as we were undergoing construction, which was great. So then we were even more scramble mode. So I would have tried to figure that out, a way to just kind of manage investors better and perhaps talk about realistic expectations and maybe an exit strategy with our investors would have been the biggest thing I would have tried to do. But that also, I don't know if that would have worked. Like, it's really easy to say that in hindsight. But when you're borrowing money from somebody to invest in your company, they kind of control a lot there. Yeah. We had the excitement of it being a marijuana startup, but we weren't the Silicon Valley tech startup. Like I played that game a little bit too. And it's a very vastly different, right? They're looking for huge, unicorn X returns, and that stuff nobody knew what to expect in the marijuana industry. So like we didn't have a long line of investors. Right. Managing that better, I think, would have been helpful for us. That'd be the biggest thing, and that went all the way down to before we ever even opened. I think we've made a lot of mistakes, but it made us better. The grow's been very challenging. The grows are so expensive to build out and to operate. If I had hindsight, so like when marijuana, so we were medical only, and then in 2020 it passed. That was a landslide. So I mentioned the first voter pass initiative. We passed by like a few thousand votes. It was that close. Prop 207. Which I was very involved in, learned a lot about the campaign process. It was a really cool experience. That was like a 60-40 landslide. So in those 10 years from 2010 to 2020, nationwide, and then you saw a reflection of that in Arizona, the stigma of marijuana changed drastically. So you saw a huge slide towards people of all ages embracing marijuana and being for it, regardless of party. It was really cool to see. That's only grown. It's one of the most popular topics that politicians want to embrace now, because it's 80% approval rate. So it's a pretty great topic. But that changed a lot, right? So over that time, that stigma changed drastically. So I kind of lost my train of thought there, though.
No, it was just, if you were to do anything differently, and you brought up an interesting point about the investors, right? Like, you can think back and be like, okay, I would have rather something be like this, right? But then that could have just done the whole butterfly effect and changed everything else, right? That investor could have probably been investing, and you might have overlooked some small print in whatever contract that you signed, and that might have been a savvy investor. And then you fast forward 12 years ahead of time, where things might not work out as well, right? So,
but the grow is where I was going there. So why I circled back to the election was, now we knew that rec was going to pass, but we didn't know. There's no way to really have a great understanding of how much you should expect your business to increase, and then would there be a sufficient supply of product for that to happen. So all we could do is look at other states, and we had to prepare for 4 or 5x type multiples of customers, and that's what we basically kind of prepared for. But what was so fascinating was COVID exploded the marijuana scene, and then we were already a very mature state. So we basically kind of doubled, I think, as a state from a consumer base, which was fantastic. But we didn't hit those like 4 or 5x multiples that Colorado did. But looking back at it, Colorado went from medical to rec very quickly. Yeah. So the medical market wasn't near as established as we were. So that's why their multiple shot up so high. So what happened was everybody reinvested in their grows, and then there ended up being just a huge surplus of flower. And then you saw a lot of grows just go under, kind of circles back to that original conversation. So all these people borrowed millions of dollars, invested in grows. Now we have all this huge surplus of flower, and then the demand's not there because we didn't hit those crazy multiples. So, perhaps not investing in the grow as much would be probably the second thing I'd say. We have an amazing team. We're putting out a really good product, but it's like it's exceptionally difficult to grow flower for the price that the market dictates, because there's some huge growers out there just growing at scale, and that's not really us. We're kind of more on that boutique side of things, just putting out really top quality flower, but far smaller levels. But it's expensive. It's just very expensive to grow. It's very tedious. I don't know where the nickname weed came from, because it's the most high maintenance plant that there is. So it's like, I think people think, including me 12 years ago, that it's easy to grow. And it's like, technically it kind of is, but not to the levels that people expect and demand. To have an all organic grow and to hand trim everything, and to, the automation involved in monitoring, our grows, and the security of it, and the land, and like, it's just very expensive operation that you're working on margins that are just that like this, and concerned that those margins are just going to be flat. Like if we didn't have a retail store to sell our product through, our grow would have been underwater. But the fact that we can sell our flower, at retail price helps us out a lot, and that's no question what's allowed our grow to stick around.
Right. So on that, would you contemplate, again, not investing as much in the grow, but possibly opening up a second store?
We flirted with the idea of a second store really since day one. Like we're it's a little bit of a sore subject, because and circling back to the investor topic, is we wanted multiple locations, and the investor partners we had, like we didn't have the money, right? I was 30 years old. My brother was a little bit younger. Doug's my age. So like we didn't have just hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to just personally invest in this. So we obviously brought on investors. But the writing was on the wall that the future's here, and like the scariness had gone away. This is a legitimate business, and you could buy licenses for like $400,000 or $500,000. And we went to our partners and we're like, we got to do this. We got to buy these, and this is going to be huge. And we were right, and they weren't comfortable doing it, and we were still facing our investor network at that time. We just couldn't raise the funds. So we failed at that. That's definitely one of my biggest regrets. So I to circle back to your previous question, if we did it all over again, we should have 5 or 6 locations for sure. That was that wasn't a lack of effort, and it wasn't a lack of foresight. It was just we did not do a good enough job bringing on capital at that point, and that definitely hurt us. Like we got a great thing going. I'm not complaining, but nobler. There should be about 5 of them in the state.
Right. Well, that kind of goes back to, and I didn't know this at the time about, the whole free market. Are you good enough to achieve the thing? And it doesn't necessarily mean from a store perspective, like, are you good enough to then convince investors to give you the capital to then open up the store? And that's the kind of play, right? So, aside from that though, what's next? Let's look into the future. What's next in store for you, and, for the shop, or for the grow, or for anything else, or the line of edibles that you have coming out, or that are out already?
Yeah, so the Kicks is the big news that launched literally yesterday. So getting Kicks into every dispensary in the state is our focus now, and then we'll once that's been a heck of a process that we talked about already. So now that we can get that product out, we can kind of focus on R&D and look at some other options. We don't have we have a few products in mind, but nothing's even at stage 1 yet. It's just literally names of concepts, thoughts, really. So we'll start focusing on that. We're very much paying attention to the federal landscape. That's fascinating. We have the potential of either rescheduling or descheduling. Whether that's good or bad, nobody knows at this point. Like you can make a good argument either way. It just ultimately depends on how the rules and laws get written. The 280E, safe banking, all that stuff is high on the radar. Unfortunately, there's all that stuff's kind of certainly out of my hands, but it's definitely the hot topic, statewide in the industry and really nationwide. It's going to have a big impact. If nothing happens, there's an argument that could be better. Because ultimately, it's like it's really easy to say I want safe banking to pass, which if I could say that, I certainly would support that. But ultimately, it's like, well, what final bill actually passes? What extra language gets added in there?
What's fine print?
Yeah. So, and then the like federal legalization, that sounds great, but is that mean Amazon's delivering marijuana to your door and I'm competing against Amazon? So like trying to understand like the nuances of all these different rules from a federal standpoint. That's definitely been a focus, and then just kind of just keep doing what we're doing. Like I don't see us adding a second location at this point. We're just really doubling down on what we have, making sure that Noble Herb's the best it can be, making sure Pure Edibles is the best it can be, and make sure we're growing the best flower we can grow. So I think we're at a really good spot right now. We have an amazing team in place, and it's just trying to just double down on all of that.
For sure. What would you say to a dispensary owner who's looking to take it to the next level?
My first question would be is what state are they in? It's like the answer is going to vastly change. I'm not an expert on every state. I am on Arizona. I don't know the rules of every other state. I know bits and pieces. But you got to have a good team in place. This is not a business, and I think this applies for any business really, but this is not like a hobby, right? So if you're a dispensary owner, you better be there. You better be the first to leave, and most days the last, or first to show up and last to leave. This is not like a job a business you can own and not be there and be absent. Like you're going to get just robbed blind, and you're not going to compete with your competitors who are there working harder. So be present and make sure you have a great team in place. And take pride in your team. So it's a lot of the products you are selling are identical to the products that your neighborhood dispensary is selling. Meaning you once again, depending on the state, like you probably do and will have dispensaries very close to you. So like, what are you doing to separate yourself from them? A lot of the products are going to be identical, like you're buying from the same vendors. So it's making sure that your team's better than that team. And so that's not just you individually as the owner. It goes down to you training your people, making sure that they want to be there. And it gets stale. You got to make sure that you're staying on your team, and the ones that are checking out, which will happen, you need to replace them with people that are excited and eager to be there.
Yeah. Ryan, where can people find you if they want to get in touch? Or maybe not you, Noble Herb. If you're a busy, you're the busy entrepreneur, where do you want to put people?
Yeah, I would just steer you towards any of our social media platforms. We have, people monitor all that. So, we have Pure Edibles AZ and Noble Herb AZ. We're on all the socials, websites, all that stuff matches that. And always happy to connect though.
So fantastic. Ryan, again, thank you very much for hopping on the show. I think we can do an even part 2 when we talk about, the whole federal input of the cannabis space of itself. That can definitely be another one. Or, even if/when some of these things do pass, we actually talk about the reality of things and what that actually means for you. I think those would be really interesting conversations, because all the conversations you see online right now are very much there's speculation, hypothesis. If this happens, this is probably going to happen, right? But in X months/years time, I think that'd be a really awesome show that we can, kind of chat about, see where you are in the future. But I wanted to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your day. And, until next time, guys, thank you for listening to the Dispensary Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Kwan, and I'll see you next time. See you guys.
Thanks, Brandon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Dispensary Marketing Podcast. My name is Brandon Kwan, and I'm the founder of Cannabis Marketing, the #1 marketing agency of choice for dispensaries, both in the United States and in Canada. If you ever want to get in touch with me about any marketing strategies, tips, and tricks, I can definitely help you. Just go visit our website at cannabudmarketing.com. That's CANNABUD marketing.com, or just check the links in the description below. Until next time, talk to you later. Bye.